Welcome to Talk Tennis. This is going to be a wrap up of some of my favorite and your favorite episodes from 2023. Another year done, another year of fun tennis chatter, geeking out on all the things on the court, off the court, and everything in between. We've got some fun clips to highlight some of the best episodes of 2023. So let's get right into it. I have to say, when thinking through all the episodes that we did this year, one of my absolute highlights was having Isa Tomanovic on the podcast. She is one of my favorite players on tour. And then being able to watch her in Netflix Breakpoint has been super fun. She is back from injury. She just won a small tournament a couple weeks ago. So I'm very excited and hope to see her down in Australia. I can't wait to watch her 2024 unfold because I think she's ready to go. But one of my absolute favorite episodes this whole year was with her. She's absolutely amazing. Am I gushing? Yes, I am totally gushing. So let's get right into the first episode with Isa Tomanovic.
I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in the last year or two, there seems to be a more emotional, mature response out on the court. And is this something you've been putting a lot of time and working on? Or is it something that you just feel like you've continued to get older so you have more experience? Talk to me about how you're kind of embracing your stronger mental side of the game.
Yeah, I think that I've been doing this for a while, and I had a moment maybe a couple years ago where I felt like I've been through so many heartbreaking matches that I've lost. And I felt like I was finding myself in these situations again and again, and not much was changing. The emotions would always get the better of me in the end. And I'm the type of person, I want to win so much. It means so much that it has the counter effect sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think there came a point where I just was like, okay, I need to really dive deep into what goes wrong in these matches when I lose, and just not try to minimize that same outcome for the next match. And when I started doing that, every match that I played, there was something different that didn't work. So I started problem solving a lot more, and it's not easy to confront your negative sides. It's scary. We all kind of run from that when you have to think not badly of yourself, but just acknowledge that, well, I screwed up here, and why did I do that? Why was that a thought that came in my mind at 5-all and 30-all?
Right.
But confronting it and going over it just helped me to relax more. And the more I kind of worked on it, the more success I had, and then build confidence. And before, I would just kind of cry about it, be sad, and just not want to confront it because it's too painful.
Maybe there's not a lot, because you actually do an amazing job of balancing an authentic voice, but still being professional. And it's cool because we've gotten to see, you did that My Tennis Life with Tennis Channel, and we've gotten to see behind the scenes and on court, and you're a fierce competitor, and you're just, when you're winning and even when you're losing, and then your speeches after, it's just so great. I think you just draw people in with that. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I always get they're always like, oh my gosh, Isla, you always look so stoic and almost like you don't have emotion. And I kind of hate that, because inside, I mean, in every aspect of my life, I'm very emotional. I love to get happy. When I feel things, I really feel them deeply, good and bad. And I think it's more my strength than my weakness, because I don't know, it's just things matter to me, and I think people sometimes don't get that side, because on the court for those 2 hours, I'm trying my best just to keep calm. And I have a good poker face most of the time, but there's a lot going under there. So I think fans that have maybe been around longer than maybe now, since just last year, can really see that. But yeah, I love to feel things. Things matter. So yeah,
I'm very emotional too, so I get it.
Next up, we had an opportunity to record a podcast in a professional stringing room at the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells this past year. It was super fun and it was very electric. There was a lot going on. We had pro players coming in and dropping off their rackets to get restrung. And we were able to talk to Dennis Fabian from Head, who, shout out, he might have been the most requested, and he was on the podcast the most in 2023, aside from myself. So he is a fan favorite. I know you guys love Dennis and love when we chat with him. He's so insightful and he's open to talking about everything, which we don't always get to see behind the curtain like that. So enjoy this clip from that BNP Stringing Room podcast. Tell everyone where we are.
We are right now here in the middle of the epicenter of the stringing room, basically. Like right behind us, a couple of guys grinding and working on rackets. Total of 12 stringers again this year, and a hell lot of work for these guys, yeah.
At the BNP Paribas Open
Yes,
in Indian Wells, California.
Correct, yes.
I don't know, this might be a first, hopefully, maybe, the first podcast recorded in a stringing room. There's probably been others.
Maybe, but I don't know. But like,
But this will be the
let's
best.
pretend we are the first and the best.
First, best. We're making history here. Okay. Another favorite episode that was recorded this past year. It actually came at the beginning of 2023, and I always like resetting the year with goal setting and intentions and all that. And we had James on to talk to us about training as tennis players and training as we get older and training in a very smart way for our bodies instead of overworking and trying to do all the things. Fun fact, I actually just consulted with him last week as I've kind of been dealing with some resetting with my own personal body and my own workout structures. He is so smart, so insightful. He knows tennis players. He is an amazing trainer. Plus, he's just got tons of great energy. He loves what he does. So enjoy this clip and learn a little bit about training with James. So maybe you can talk me down from the ledge. I'm still working out and everything else, but talk about quantity versus quality. And also there's just so many things in the world. There's like HIIT workouts, strength workouts, cardio only. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget to stretch. Don't forget your yoga. And by the time you're getting older, you don't have that many hours in the day. So let's talk about the aging athlete.
Absolutely. And hey, I'm not that far behind. I'm about to be 31 in a few months, and all of a sudden I'm feeling my knee. I'm like, what's going on here?
Just wait.
So
I saw a meme yesterday sorry, I have to interrupt because the timing was perfect. It was like, be scared of the person that is over 40 years old and runs because you know that their body and like all the comments were hilarious. And I'm like, same. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. No. Working, with an aging body, because, our goal, and we see this on the court a lot, right? Tennis is one of those sports that you could be the ageless athlete in. And you could be playing singles, doubles, you name it, all the way past your prime to the point that you can still enjoy the game. But how do you then supplement that?
And walk upstairs the next day.
Exactly. Right. Or get up from bed. So I think it comes down to, and you mentioned it, like, what's the kind of relationship of quality versus quantity? I think that quality plays a bigger aspect there. I mentioned also earlier, juniors, younger kids, young adults going to college, they can take on a greater amount of volume over time. And so when we're looking at the quality versus quantity, your quality of training should come down to keeping some of those biomarkers available, ready, and you don't lose them over time. What I mean by that, a great example is power and just maximum speed. You actually have to be training power maximum speed about give or take, every 5 to 7 days before you start to see a dip in that quality. Maximum strength is, I think, plus or minus 5 days, but it's plus or minus 25 days, plus or minus 5. So you go almost a whole month without trying to lift almost anything moderate to extremely heavy, but you could still maintain that maximum strength. So flipping it back and forth between a lot of those things, mobility, I think, is a extremely important quality to always maintain. As we find ourselves, being glued to our phones most of the time, sitting down, whether it's for work or other things, sitting through traffic. If it's also then working on your isometric strength, another area I think which is really important. You're telling your body, you're sending a message from your brain to your muscle, push as hard as possible.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen in studies that is it's actually a really great way to maintain your strength over, the longevity of your life. So power, speed, isometric strength, plyometrics, I think fall into that category. You never want to have a scenario where you start to lose power, and that comes also from the lower body. So you don't need to go through those repetitive, nonstop EMOM 24-inch box jumps for 2 minutes straight. You're gassed out. You can't walk the next day. But it's still important to practice some of those movements at a lower volume that are going to keep your bones healthy, your tendons springy, and your muscles active.
Some of the easiest podcasts for me to record are the ones where I'm sitting with the playtesters and Troy, and I always have a good time bantering about whether it's pro gear, pro players, pro gossip, pro tournaments, and we have a lot of those coming to you in 2024. Those episodes we'll be doing a few more of those as we love them. But check out this clip and see what kind of changes we'd like to make to the pro tour in 2024. We're going to talk about pro stuff. Pro, allegedly, what's happening, and some true things that are happening, like gear and stuff, allegedly, because endorsing.
Yeah.
Oh man,
what's going down on the tour? So what's going on the tour right now? We're
on the tour.
I'm stoked that we got the grass court tennis on TV.
Yes.
At this moment, I love the clay court season, but like watching tennis on TV, I've always talked about like clay court tennis isn't necessarily the funnest to watch for me on TV. Just one, because I guess like just the vividness of the picture. Like on clay, you can't really track the ball as well. The court's got some discoloration and the background. Mm-hmm. The ball doesn't really pop. And then as soon as the grass court comes, and especially when the courts are like fresh and not worn down, that bright green, you see the ball clearly. It's just different.
Yeah.
And then for me too, it's shorter points, not as much of a grind. So I don't know. I love watching this time of year with the grass courts. I wish, and I know this is a kind of a debate on the tour, but I wish this grass court season was longer.
Totally.
I feel like
bring it back, make it longer.
We have so many hard court tournaments, and the clay court season goes on for a decent amount of time that we could probably cut a week or two, maybe somewhere in there, and add.
Right.
But I guess maybe part of that more grass court tournaments is the resources and the availability. I don't know, there's not a ton of grass court clubs and a host site for more, I guess, but in a dream world.
In a dream world, we're petitioning to have a grass court tournament out in the desert where there's some grass courts.
Yeah, more grass court tournaments and bring Roger back.
Bring Roger back! Speaking of Roger... Yesterday, so I said this out loud and someone was like, no, it's in August. I was like, is it not Roger Federer Day? Because Halle started.
Yeah.
That's like the Roger Federer tournament.
Yeah, he played it or won it like 10 times or something. But I that's what I thought at the Halle tournament, they were going to have like a day dedicated to him at the tournament.
It was yesterday.
And they did a little ceremony for him and stuff.
Yeah. We have someone in our office who keeps threatening to get an RF tattoo. I'm going to put him on blast. He has not gotten the tattoo, and he told me it was not RF day, and I think that now he needs to go get that tattoo for not being the biggest fan. Yeah. As I mentioned, I love when we get to podcast with the playtesters. It just is like a normal conversation in our office. So we had so much fun recording the Prestige Deep Dive. Head has reissued that Prestige Classic 2.0 this year, one of our favorite releases of the year. And I know Chris just switched to that racket. So we had a really good time just talking about all things Prestiges, and you can hear a little insight about how this racket came to be.
Is that kind of what you're talking about? The difference if you change factories, it changes the layup of the graphite
so
and the feel?
we've requested many times since I've been here at T-Dub for Head to bring back, versions of the Prestige Mid. And so this, we've had Prestige Classic come back, and there was the frames were made. So all the molding and everything was done in Kennelbach. And then the paint and grommets and stuff were applied in the Czech Republic. So they were really made in Austria, finished in the Czech Republic, which I think is what we put in our product description, but they say made in the Czech Republic on them because that's where they were finished. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, those were pretty sought after back in the day. And then we've had other ones that have been made in China, but I think the playability is still spot on. Yeah.
Next up, we had Luxilon on the podcast, which I think is pretty cool. And we were able to hear all about how sustainable the Luxilon factory is. Plus, we heard some insights from the stringing room at the US Open and what has changed, some trends that they're seeing. So this was a super insightful podcast for me, and I hope you guys like it as much as I did. Give me all the details that you can share with us.
For you, anything. So, I think it's a new record. Obviously, we have 2 Grand Slams in US Open and Roland Garros, and 7,000 rackets strung.
That's crazy. That's a lot of rackets.
Which is a lot of rackets. So, it's busy. We think that's a record. It's certainly Roland Garros was around 6-7, something like that. So we hit that 7,000, wow. And then in one day, 577 rackets strung in one day.
What day was that of the tournament?
So the day before main draw.
Okay.
Started, so end of qualies and stuff. So yeah, an insane amount of rackets.
But I keep telling everyone it's made 100% from recycled materials, all of it, including the packaging, everything. Plus, it's a good plain string. I really like the Eco Power, and I'm going to let you guys take it from there. How did this concept come about? Explain how long you've been working on it, and we'll just start there.
I think it started quite a lot of years ago, especially at Luxilon. We're always involved in sustainability. When we built our new factory, we built it with the idea, okay, how can we make our factory more sustainable? How can we reuse the heat of the machines? How can we use some electricity like solar panels? We have the 1,600 panels on the roof.
Sometimes the year ends and you try to remember everything that launched throughout the year, and it gets a little overwhelming. But one that we cannot forget is the Pure Aero Origin Rafa racket that Babolat helped make just for Rafa with his specs. And this racket is super beastie and amazing. So if you have hit with it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't hit with it, maybe it's time to demo. But we had a chance to talk to Olivier from Babolat in the desert this past year, all about what it was like working with Rafa, from specs to even the paint job on the racket and everything in between.
We decided with Rafa and his team to work on the second generation, and then
here it is.
Here it is.
Here it is. And it's beautiful and bright. And I want to dive deep into the specs of this racket because I've had a chance to hit with it. And this is a monster of a racket. I have so much more respect for Rafa. Not that we all respect him as an athlete, but the second you hit with this racket, you realize he is insanely strong. He's whipping through the ball so fast. So talk to me specifically about this Origin racket.
So it's a racket that is really dedicated to heavy spin, what we call heavy spin, which is a combination of power and ball rotation and spin. That racket is with the stiffness. We have a specific stiffness, 73 RA, and a certain weight and balance that generate a lot of spin and power. So we worked on this racket based on Rafa's specifications, because we know that this is specifications that help a lot to generate the ball rotation. We say that it was important to propose to the players that experience to get that racket generate so much power and spin to push back the opponent as Rafa does. So this is a racket with Rafa specs. We have some other rackets in the collections too. We have a lighter version at 290 grams and 33 centimeter balance. So it's a racket with same characteristic. With we increase the stiffness on the racket shaft to have a great stability, and then with location of the weight more on the racket head to have even more stability on the hoop, and generate power and spin. So it's a pure aero-modular technology with what we have FSI spin, which is a frame string interaction with a woofer system to really help the snapback and the trampoline effect of the string to maximize the spin. Then we have a third racket, the Pure Aero Rafa Junior 26.
Nice.
It was important to propose for young champions a racket made of carbon with a cosmetic design of Rafa's rackets.
And then talk to me a little bit about working with Rafa, how in tune, I mean, he's very particular about what he likes and what he doesn't like on the court. So I can imagine he's very in tune with the specs of his racket. How was it working with him?
Yes, it's always a great experience for us to have testing sessions with such players. He's very sensitive. He's one of the most sensitive players we have in the team. So we work with racket customizers. So most of the players in the team have some racket customized. So we spend time, yes, at least once a year with players, top players, to just understand their needs, expectations, if they want to bring some adjustments, slight adjustments to the racket. And then, it's Rafa is very unique. You saw the forehand is so big. It's one of the biggest forehand in the tour. So it's we worked on a way to maximize the power and the ball rotation, which is very important for him, just to get a certain control. And it's every time we learn a lot from the feedback we have from players. We try to observe the game, how the game can evolve at different levels, so on the tour, in clubs. And and then we work in constant collaboration to work on small adjustments and make the best racket to perform with.
In 2023, I personally saw myself back in the coaching world of junior tennis, which was crazy. Over 10 years ago, I said I would never go back to coaching, and here I am. And one of my favorite chats was with Quinn Borchardt. He is an absolute amazing junior coach. He's an amazing coach in general, but he also has his own little ones that he is coaching and working with. And his son, James, has had an incredible year. I think that's 2 incredible years. And he talks a little bit about the demands of junior tennis and the expectations from parents and coaches and making it fun. That's the one thing that they always do day in and day out is have fun on the court. And I think that's why James is doing so well, seeing so much success. But here's a little insight into our junior tennis chat. There are a lot of parents and coaches that are like, cool, my kid's having fun. Let's take it where they want to go. Let's have them decide how far they want to go, and like let's be a part of their team. But then I also see the other side, coaches as well. Nope, this person's gonna be the best. She better be this. She better be number 1 in the 16s. And it's like she does not have right now on paper any reason for you to say that.
I deal with this obviously a lot in junior tennis. Not hopefully from not the parents that of the juniors that I coach. Is, you know, like we lay it down pretty it's a pretty concrete thing. So with the players, say someone comes to me and says that, okay, and say like, hey, I want my kid to be, I don't know, number 1 or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Or play college tennis.
Whatever.
Whatever it is. Okay. So then I say, okay, well, let's look realistically where they are. Okay. What's their ranking in Southern Cal? What's their UTR? You know, these are things, these are metrics that are not subjective. Okay. So like, these are things that are real. You can really, you know, do metrically. And you say, okay, well, they're 15 years old and they're a 4 UTR and they're 130 in Southern Cal. Okay, well, realistically speaking, to be number 1, that's going to be really difficult. I can show you right now what are the players that look like, where are they, what are they going to go to college tennis? Are they going to stay in high school tennis? All that stuff. What are the things that you need to do? Okay, like to get to number one. Is that realistically speaking? No, it's probably not. All of the stuff that I have, and this is what I do, and this is what has worked for me and my juniors. Okay, like I have James, who is number one in the world, 2013 birth year. I have his buddy Taiki is top 50 in the country. Last year was 500 in the country. I have a girl, Maddie Cleary, top 15 in the country. I have so and these are the players that I really have, like, this is what we do. So whatever the goal is, okay, and it's never, to be honest, like, I don't really love, like, I want to be number one in the world stuff, or like not even, but just like if you want to play college tennis, okay, that's good. That's a good goal. But like, I like goals that are like this year. Mm-hmm. Like, what is this year's goal? Mm-hmm. Okay, so like, what is my UTR goal? Okay, what is my ranking goal? What is my stroke production goal? Okay, and what are the tournaments that I want to get into? What are the tournaments that I want to play? Okay, all of this stuff should be written down. This should all be written down. It should be given to me. Okay, so the thing is I think with parents, there's a lot of dreamers out there, and it's great to have a dream, and you should have a dream, absolutely. But with a dream without goals, it's just a dream. Okay, how are you going to actually do this? Okay, and it's yearly. It should be yearly. Like, sometimes it could be even like every 6 months, and to see and to track the progress and see where you are and all that stuff. So if somebody says like, hey, Quinn, I really want my kid to play college tennis, I say, okay, great. That's a great goal. Okay, let's look at the players now who are playing college tennis, what their UTR is, what their ranking was, how long did they play, and also the seniors right now. Okay, so what do you have to be realistically to play college tennis? And then we go from there, and we say, okay, and that's a really like far away goal. But as soon as you go, okay, well, you want to play, I want to play at UCLA. Okay, like, say you're a goal and you want to play at UCLA, one of the best tennis schools in the nation. Okay, and that's great. You want to play at UCLA, love it. Okay, well, then you've got to at least be a 10-5 UTR. You've got to be at least top 20 in the country to even think about it. And if you're not there, and if you're not close, it might be time to adjust expectations, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. As you guys know, we have a whole crew of T-Dub sponsored pro players, Team T-Dub. And it's always fun connecting with them during the year. They don't have a lot of downtime, but sometimes we can catch them in between matches or in between tournaments. So had a chance to talk to Alexa Garachi and Asia Mohammed. Both are on tour and having great careers, just grinding away. But Asia talks about being a doubles and singles specialist, and she's working on building her singles ranking while also building her doubles ranking. And then Alexa's able to give that perspective on why she only focuses on doubles. I thought it was a super insightful conversation. They're both amazing young ladies, so check it out. I saw you had a qualifying singles match recently, but then your doubles ranking's like awesome, and so you get straight into these other doubles tournaments. Talk to me about that balance right now.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's pretty tough. So the beginning of the year, my ranking was much better, but after Australian Open, I actually tore my ab. And I had a lot of points to defend after that. So January, February time. And I couldn't play at all. I was home, which was really nice because we were not home a lot. And since then, like where my ranking was, it's easier to get. I was like in the 140 range. It's much easier to get into doubles and singles at the same tournaments, the bigger WTAs. So that makes managing a lot easier. But now that my ranking has dropped, you kind of have to pick and choose. And there might be a really good science to which tournaments you kind of prioritize, which I'm trying to figure that out. But yeah, at the 250 that we just played in Cleveland, I was able to get into both, which was really nice. But some tournaments, you're playing doubles, and if you make it to the weekend, that's when the singles for qualifying starts. So you have to choose, okay, well, semifinals of this doubles tournament, or do I go and try and play singles? Sometimes it can be like that every week if you're, doing well in doubles. So you have to pick and choose, or you can completely skip the doubles tournament and go play some smaller tournaments and singles to get your ranking back up. So then, you're playing the bigger tournaments again. So it's kind of been like that a lot for me. Obviously, if your rankings top 100, or even if you get to the top 50, then it makes it much easier, because depending on which tournament, you're not having to get there for qualies of the next week. So that's kind of what you want to aim to be, just so you can almost play a tournament full out, which kind of sounds crazy, but you want to be able to finish a tournament and have the mindset that you are going to finish a tournament. So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, and trying to figure out for the rest of the year, my schedule.
No, that seems so tough. It's like working a job and then having like a pretty serious side hustle, because you literally, it sounds like you're not really having a lot of days off in that.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
The best part of playing doubles on tour, and what is the worst part of playing doubles on tour?
That's a good question.
Right?
I think the best part is it's nice being out there with someone, right? Like when you're out there playing and competing, like you're not alone. Like, that like you have someone that like has your back, and like you can talk, like whatever you go through on court, you're going to go through together, whether it's good or bad. So I think that part, it's always really good to experience that. The worst part, I don't even know.
The worst part. Maybe sometimes the worst part, we're so used to just being individual that sometimes maybe that you have a teammate, you're like, maybe I just wish I was out here by myself.
I know. I just had this conversation about how selfish tennis players are. Am I selfish?
Yeah. Like sometimes, and when you're arranging your warm-ups, it's not just what time you want to hit, it's also what time your partner wants to hit. But I would agree with Lex. It's nice, having someone else out there and not doing it just for yourself. But then sometimes it is nice to just be by yourself. That's what I feel.
I guess the worst part is if you had a bad partner who like kind of blamed you and was like negative and like mean and stuff. That would be
on court.
Yeah.
Next up, we had a chat with Tourna Grip, the light blue grip that does not slip. Kevin joined us. His family founded Tourna Sports, and he talks all about the ins and outs of that grip that is so iconic and used by several pro players. I know some of you guys were questioning that on YouTube, but aside from Pete Sampras, he talks about James Blake. We see Grigor Dimitrov. There's a lot of players out there that use a light blue grip, and you know where it comes from. So learn all about the ins and outs, how this grip came to be, what sets it apart, what makes it so special in this clip. Do you have any fun Pete Sampras stories to share, or any fun athlete stories? I know you guys have worked with a lot.
Well, I think the biggest shocker when you looked at like Pete's racket is just how much lead tape he had stacked around the edges. I mean, it looked like a pyramid. So, I mean, playing with such a modified heavy racket, it's really interesting. But on the player side, it's, we don't have that many funny stories. I think it's much more interesting when I look at like somebody like James Blake, right? Who, when you look at Tourna Grip, it started off as the original width of Tourna Grip. We never mess with the length. And so what we do through the years is we've made it wider and wider and introduced an XL and an XXL. But with James, it's like, hey, James, we've got this XL version. We're selling it really well. Would you like to try it? He's like, no, absolutely not. I got to have that one. And then you ask somebody like Andy Roddick, and he's like, I can't play with that skinny grip. You need to make it bigger than your XL, which is why we created the XXL. Every single player that we have a relationship with and have had through the years, They all have their exact preferences on what it is. And that's a big reason why we could never change Tourna grip either.
I love discovering new brands, and I like when people do something a little different than what everyone else is doing. So for me, 2023 was the year of Ace the Moon. I am obsessed with their style, their branding, their hats, their trucker hats, their sweats, their sweatshirts. It's just such a fun brand. And I had a chance to talk to the co-founders, learned about how they met. It's a wild story. I'm actually going to meet up with them this weekend in LA. So I'm super excited to share this brand with you. You guys are like doing something so different and I love it. So we're going to get into that. But if you want to connect the dots, how did you guys meet? How did this brand start? Tell me.
Funny enough, we did meet on a dating app.
Yes.
We met on Hinge. And I was still living in New York. Dina was here in LA. We realized we had, I don't know, maybe like 100 mutual friends on Facebook and whatnot. And we just became best friends. I ended up living with Dina before I found my place in Santa Monica. She was gracious enough to let me stay in her place and, in exchange for some tennis lessons now. But
hydration is always important no matter what time of year it is. As tennis players, we're always thinking about the best way to hydrate for those long matches. And we had fun recording an episode with one of our sponsored T-Dub players, Danielle Lau, as well as Jess from Salt Stick. And we talk a little bit about the best methods for hydrating ourselves, if there's a different approach, if you're a high-level professional athlete or just your casual, every day I go to the gym and work out, every day I play tennis kind of athlete. So they have some amazing tips and tricks, as well as some great products that I personally love that I think you'll learn a lot from this episode. I am definitely someone that struggles with hydration. I have my whole life. I've always been like a heavy sweater. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm usually like dripping perspiration. Are these products going to be okay for someone like me to use, even if I'm not, planning a 5-hour day at the courts kind of situation? And how do you recommend us average tennis players and athletes out there using your products?
That's a great question. And I think it's just so important that first off, that you view yourself as an athlete, because you're moving. Like sometimes like my busiest work days as a business person are harder than like a hard day on the bike, for our brand specifically, I mentioned earlier that our parent brand is called Elite Active Nutrition, and that's ALETE. And we put a lot of thought into that. It stands for all athletes, meaning, if you're out there and you're moving, and you're an athlete.
Another racket that stood out in 2023 for me was the Wilson Shift rackets. We had a chance to talk to Michael Schaefer from Wilson, and fun fact, he was in one of the initial 3 episodes of Talk Tennis forever ago. But he explains what makes these rackets so different, and he talks about the third dimension of bending and gets really scientific and technical, but also talks about what to expect from these rackets. A lot of players have tried them and really like them. It's like that perfect blend of pocketing and control and power and everything you want exactly when you want it. So enjoy this clip. Is there anything about the Shift's bending profile that would make it feel more stable than a similarly spec'd racket?
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about the normal bending, so like the traditional RA. We talked about the lateral RA. The third dimension of bending that we talk about is torsional stability. So that's really how much the racket twists. Shift, along with really every racket in Wilson's line, is best in class when it comes to torsional stability. And that's just something that we feel is really important to put into all of our frames. And it's almost like a signature feel for Wilson frames, because torsional stability really allows all the energy to be put back into the ball. And so I think if that's what this player is picking up on, it's that it feels stable. It's because we have intentionally built the racket to not twist.
Nice. A question that always kind of comes up, or do you have any fun stories that you can share, whether it's from your team or something that you experienced, or even with players that play tested it, that you can give us from, the early stages of this to the current production? And also follow up. I'll give you a minute to think on that one. How many prototypes did you go through?
Oh, wow. So I'll start with the last question. I don't have an exact number, but I was fortunate during the pandemic when we were doing a lot of this testing to be living in Palm Springs.
Oh, nice.
Our office was closed, so I needed to be near tennis courts. And so I was playing a lot of tennis. And it was one of those things where I think every 2 weeks a box would show up with some adjustments that the team has made. And I was doing a lot of the testing at that point. So I would say upwards of 25 or so.
Oh, man.
So we tested a lot of different variations, different string patterns, different weights and balances. I think a fun story, just the way that it all came together. I think at one point I would wake up and I would have feedback from our team in Germany because they were on court all day testing it. And then before I went to sleep, I would have feedback from our team in China or Korea where they were testing it. And so just really this being a global development within the Wilson team, it makes it somewhat unique.
Well, that wraps it up for 2023. I can't believe we're starting another year, but we're so excited to get the Australian Open started. We'll be on hard courts in the U.S. swing before we know it. And as always, feel free to reach out. Let us know what you want to hear more of. We'll do our best to answer all your questions. If you do have specific questions, we're always happy to do deep dives, ask us anything podcast episodes with the playtesters. You saw we kind of set up our podcast a little bit different towards the end of the year. So we now are able to have several people in this room, which makes the conversation even more fun. So feel free to reach out to us at podcast@tennis-warehouse.com for any of those questions, suggestions, ideas, shout outs, anything. Send us some love. And we are wishing you guys only the best for 2024. And of course, happy hitting.